I think Tennessee's strength of schedule is an absolute embarrassment. I think that those fans that are paying 5 digits to go see Kent State and Chattanooga play, if they wanted to boycott those games, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But actually, Tennessee's strength of schedule is underrated? Whoa, what, Caleb?
Yes, their strength of schedule is underrated. So let me break down why this is the case for those who don't know. Because many people were questioning why Tennessee was number 7 in the college football playoff and not lower given their strength of schedule. And a college football playoff committee chair, Ward Manuel, said the committee discussed a lot Tennessee's loss to Arkansas and looked at their overall resume. And they're ahead of number 9 Indiana, who is undefeated. His quote was, Tennessee has an impressive win over Alabama, who we ranked number 11. And then he said, and they have wins over NC State and Oklahoma are the teams he touted. And he noted that they are 4-1 right now against teams that are above 500. So this is what we have to think about with schedule strength. And this is what I've always argued with schedule strength. And I'm glad they're doing this, Dave. There's 2 layers to schedule strength. Can we agree on that? There's 2 types of schedule strengths. One is the just top level quality teams, top 10 teams you play, right?
I guess, yes.
The other, though, is how many lower level teams do you play? How good are they relative to that lower level? This is how Bruce Pearl brilliantly manipulated the RPI back in the day when that was used as the NCAA tournament selection committee. He would pick teams. He would say, you know how college basketball has all those like throwaway games in November and December that you just play to win by 30 and tune up. Bruce Pearl would say, I'm going to pick the team of those lower levels that won their conference and went to the NCAA tournament or is going to go to the NCAA tournament, because then we can beat them by 30, and then they're going to win their conference, and it's going to manipulate and affect our strength of schedule at the end of the year. Part of strength of schedule is how often do you have to play just decent teams week in and week out. We've always said this about like when Boise State upset Georgia, must have been 10, 12, 13 years ago, or when they beat Oklahoma in a bowl game. It's very easy to, it's not easy, excuse me, but it's much easier to one time in a 12-game season, Dave, to get up to play a top 5 team and beat them. But can you go beat a top 5 team one week and then beat a team with a winning record the next week and then beat another team with a winning record that may be 6-6 or 7-5, but is capable of upsetting you? That's the type of schedule Tennessee's been dealing with week in and week out since the start of the year. And I think that is where they're getting the credit.
Okay. I'm so incredibly frustrated and disagree with what you say. It's really tough for me to put it into words. Because are you trying to tell me that NC State, Chattanooga, Kent State, UTEP had a realistic shot at beating Tennessee? Really?
I'm trying to tell you NC State, Oklahoma, and Florida all did.
They don't pick those teams.
Well, no, he's talking about, though, the record against teams at 500 or above. Florida took Tennessee to overtime.
Okay, is that the delineation?
Yes, because the point is, while Tennessee hasn't played a lot of, they have a quality win, Alabama. The other point, though, is while they haven't played a lot of other elite teams, no really top 25 caliber teams at this point, they've consistently played Power 5 teams above 500. Those type of teams are always capable of pulling off a shocker. And if you have to play them each week, you're bound to have a moment where you come out flat and the other team comes out hot. See Arkansas. And that's consistently been happening. And what I'm saying is, okay, I'll give you a hot take, Dave, real quick. Who's the number 1 team in the nation right now? Oregon, right? Is Oregon number 1? Okay. I'm going to say it to you this way. I think it would be much harder to play NC State, Oklahoma, and Florida and Arkansas over 4 straight weeks than it would be to play Oregon and then 3 teams with a losing record for 4 straight weeks. I think it'd be much harder to do the first one.
That's hot.
I'm not sure how hot that is, actually, now that I already played the sounder. What you're telling me, essentially, is that there are 2 types of opponents. There's a good opponent because they finished the season over 500, and there's a bad opponent because they finished the season under 500. Well, then that goes back to my original argument that at 10-2, you're going to make the college football playoff, right? Because Tennessee, in its very nature, is going to play, 5 teams that finish over 500 because of the SEC schedule. Now, my problem is the other teams they play. And I believe firmly that this guy's talking a little bit out of, who was this guy again that talked
Ward
from the college?
Manual.
Okay.
Ward Manual.
Ward Manual. I don't know that they let him in on the big time conversations. Maybe they say, Ward, do you care to sit at the kids' table, or do you care to make a quick run down to the Subway so we all have snacks? I like the chocolate chip cookies, because Ward Manual is telling us there are only 2 types of opponents, and that is one that finishes over 500 and one that doesn't. So you're telling me, let's just imagine Tennessee, Oregon sign a home and home, and they start the season, and that's a top 10 matchup. You're telling me that Tennessee would be as helped by beating Oregon or vice versa as either team would be by beating Florida, just because they're over 500. That is ludicrous to me, and that is not the best thing for the fans, because if you're right and Ward knows what he's talking about, and I've got some doubts on that, if you're right, then Tennessee should sign for no-name opponents each and every year. I mean, heck, what's Tennessee School for the Deaf doing? I'm sure they have a Saturday open. I mean, that to me is the most absurd way of looking at it. If you want to break it up into quadrants of quality of wins, I can roll with that. But I would rather listen, Tennessee slipped up and lost to Arkansas. They shouldn't have lost that game. But I will tell you that I would rather be a 10-2 team headed into the playoffs, knowing that it might have affected my seeding with a loss to Georgia, who you would agree is one of the top teams in the nation, and Oregon, as opposed to being 11-1 and wins against Kent State, Chattanooga, and UTEP. That to me is abysmal. I think you're a better football team, no matter what the College Football Playoff Committee says, by playing those games and having a challenge early.
Hey, Dave. You know what Tennessee's strength of schedule is based on the FPI and how they do that? Because, again, it's not a conglomerate. You are thinking just how many Alabamas did you play or how many Georgias did you play? That's how you're valuing strength of schedule. It's everything. How good are the bad teams you play is another part of strength of schedule. Okay, like, are they bad, or are they like an F- or an F+? Everybody gets an F team on their schedule. Are they an F- or an F+? Just to give you an example, since we just had a presidential election, I'll break it down to you this way. Everybody talks about swing states and winning this state and this state. And, the Democrats have to win this county that's blue, and the Republicans have to win this county that's red. You know what no one ever talks about? How you actually win an election? In the places you're going to lose, you make sure you don't lose by as badly as you could lose. So, for instance, Donald Trump did not lose Philadelphia County as badly as people had hoped. He was going to lose it, but you make sure that you don't lose it as badly. In 2012, Obama did not lose the rural white parts of Iowa as badly as people had hoped. You have to make sure it's not just your margins at the top. It's how good are your margins at the bottom. Now, Kent State, relative by even MAC standards, is horrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Chattanooga, though, by FCS opponent standards, is one of the better FCS teams in football right now. Tennessee played one of the best FCS teams of anybody. That has to count to a certain degree. It's not just Alabama. Right. And here's the other part.
So next step is they play one of the best high school teams.
No, because not every team plays a high school team. Tennessee, every school plays an FCS team. Who plays the better FCS team? Tennessee did. Now that's part of it, just as much as how many top tier teams you play. Tennessee playing NC State is a more marquee non-conference game at this point than a lot of other non-conference foes. Tennessee's schedule strength based on the.
Don't tell me it. Where's Tennessee's schedule ranked? And we've talked about this, and it still surprises me. So I asked Caleb to go back and double check. Brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Okay. I know a good bit about college football. Would you agree with that, Caleb?
I think you do.
Okay, so give me a number. Don't give me the actual number. I'll tell you if I think Tennessee's schedule is worth higher or lower than that number. You can start with like 100 if you want to.
Let's start with 50.
50, it's not that good. It's not. I don't. Do you have some stat telling me it is?
Yes, I do.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays.
Oh, no. Sorry, Coop. That's all right. Give me the stat then, because
That's crazy.
Tennessee's schedule strength based on the ESPN FPI is actually, let's do this. Top 40.
It's got to be lower than top 40. I was going back and forth at 100. I was trying to give you a softball to start. It's got to be
Wrong.
By lower, I mean worse than 40.
Nope. Top 30.
It's got to be. I mean, I think it's worse than top 40. So it's got to be worse than top 30.
And then your argument here with me is not with me, and it's not with opinions. It's with data and analytics. Tennessee's schedule strength based on the FPI is number 33.
That's absurd.
No, how is it absurd? It's just based on the quality of your opponents and their records and the quality of your opponents' and then the number of home and road games you played. That's how they factor in schedule strength. You ready for this, Dave? You want to hear something crazier? When you factor it in all as a conglomerate, when you add a home advantage of about 2.5 points to a schedule strength, which some do, Tennessee's is in the top 10. Now,
oh my gosh.
Wait, let me ask you this. Okay, let's because the question is Tennessee's number 7 ranked college football playoff rankings, and should their schedule strength hold them back? Honestly, Tennessee should be angry. You know why? You know why they should be angry? They should be angry about not being higher. And I didn't know this until I actually listened to this. Texas is number 5. Guess what Texas's schedule strength is?
I don't know. Did Texas play a good non-conference opponent? I'm suddenly.
Yes, they played Michigan at Michigan, but that turned out not. Tennessee actually has a harder non-conference opponent than Michigan.
Oh my gosh! See, I mean, that's my problem. Is you're
what
not.
You think? You don't think NC State could beat Michigan?
No, I think they could, but with you scheduled that to be a premier matchup for your fan base. So even though it worked out that way.
The committee's job is not to determine who gets credit for how they decided to schedule. Their job is just to determine who had a tougher road based on the teams we think. Right now, Dave, I honestly think on a neutral field, NC State might be favored over Michigan at this moment. And what I'm trying to say is that Texas' schedule strength is number 54. The only thing that's helping Texas, that's hurting Tennessee, is Texas' loss is way better than Tennessee's because their loss is to Georgia and Tennessee's is to Arkansas. But Texas don't have a win over Alabama on their resume. Their schedule's number 54. Now let's look at the teams behind because everybody's like, what about the teams behind them? Indiana schedule strength. You want to know what it is?
Lay it on me.
Their strength of schedule is outside of the top 100. Okay. Notre Dame comes in at BYU comes in at number 9 below Tennessee and Indiana. Now, BYU would get a top 4 bid as a conference champion if it stayed like this. But guess what BYU's schedule is?
BYU's schedule seems like it would be better than Tennessee's.
It's number 62. It's below Tennessee's. Ready for this? Notre Dame's strength of schedule. They're at number 10. Guess what Notre Dame's strength of schedule is?
Well, I mean, based off what you've given me, unless I was a complete nincompoop, I would say below 60 where BYU is.
Below 70. It's number 73. So the real question is, what the heck is Notre Dame even doing in these rankings? And wait, I'm still.
You know the answer to that. It's
yes,
Notre Dame.
I'm still not done. Now, Alabama's schedule strength, to their credit, is number 12, significantly better than Tennessee's, but Tennessee beat Alabama, and Alabama has one more loss. You're not going to put them ahead of Tennessee. And number 12 is Boise State. Do I really have to sell to you why Tennessee has a tougher schedule than Boise State? So you tell me, Dave, you tell me a team that should be ahead of Tennessee based on schedule strength.
LSU.
They have 2 losses. Oh, and I'm the LSU homer. LSU
No, but I'm saying I would take LSU scheduled a trip to Southern Cal. Did they not?
They scheduled a trip to Vegas to play Southern Cal.
Okay, but they scheduled a trip to play a top-tier Power 5 opponent. Now, in retrospect, that hasn't worked out, but I think they deserve some respect for that. I think there's
you are actually calling for politicking is what you're doing.
Maybe, but this should be based off your preseason schedule, not as the schedule shakes out. Because I am sick, too, of telling everybody that I'm up into, and I was on a Nashville radio station this morning telling everybody you need to root for Alabama. I sound like a village idiot.
No, you
because
don't.
If you root for Alabama, you're also rooting for them to be better in football, which means better in recruiting, and you lose more recruiting battles against them. The whole thing is absolutely absurd. You should set the strength of schedule based off the beginning of the year, and it doesn't move.
That's insane. You have to set it based on who you actually played. You're saying, you know what, Dave, you know what you sound like? You sound like a local policymaker that you think this should be treated the way criminal court should be treated, which is that attempted murder is a charge in criminal court, which is to say, yeah, you didn't actually pull off the murder, but you tried to pull off the murder. You're saying attempted high strength of schedule should be a part of the
attempted high strength of schedule.
Attempted high strength of schedule. That's what you're calling for.
Stand by that.
So let's make this clear. Let's just set this stage. What Dave is saying is that who you intend to play matters as much as who you actually play. So therefore, if a team that you play is not good, but you scheduled them expecting them to be good, you should be rewarded in your strength of schedule rankings. So you're saying that LSU should get more credit for playing USC than Tennessee for playing NC State, because even though NC State may actually be better than USC, when they made the schedule, LSU intended to play a tougher non-conference opponent. That's what you're saying.
Yes. And it's not like back in the day where I would have no defense, because if you remember, back in the day, those schedules were set about 38 years in advance. So you really didn't know. But now they're only 4 or 5 years in advance.
Oh, wait, no, wrong one. Sorry. This one. Sorry, Steven. I did like your point, but.
What one?
Steven had a great point earlier where he said there's more SOS in the SEC than any other conference because of the amount of ranked teams. That's true. That's a good point. But I'm saving. This is my point for you, Dave. Look at this. This post by David. Oh,
I've been sipping on Grandpa's cough medicine.
Yes.
I wish pre-workout would be more appropriate. Maybe that's why I have so much energy. Caleb called me to set up the show this morning. Could you hear the weights clattering in the background, by the way?
I could actually. Dave and I both call doing some not Dave does way more, but we're both in the middle of like I'm always walking my dog trying to set up the show with Dave sometimes, and Dave's always lifting, and so we're both like, all right, so what do you think of this one? What do you guys think? What do you think of doing this? What do you think of doing this topic?
Yeah, I'm not really lifting.